Radio communications are an essential link in the ATC system. This link can be a strong bond between a pilot and a controller, or it can be broken and result in disasters. The single most important part of pilot-controller communication is understanding. It is essential that pilots acknowledge each radio communication with ATC by using the appropriate aircraft call sign. It is also important to keep context as brief as possible. For radio communications, use radio frequencies only for the special purposes that they are intended. A single frequency may be used for more than one function, except for terminal. When combining positions in the tower, do not use ground control frequency for airborne communications. You should monitor interphones and assign radio frequencies continuously. However, USAF facilities may not monitor all unpublished discrete frequencies. Pilot acknowledgement and readback. When issuing clearances or instructions, ensure acknowledgement by the pilot. If no acknowledgement is received, then attempt to reestablish contact. If your attempts to reestablish are unsuccessful, advise the FLM or CIC. If altitude, heading, or other items are read back by the pilot, ensure the readback is correct. If it is incorrect or incomplete, make corrections as appropriate. Furthermore, transmit only those messages that are necessary for air traffic control or otherwise contributing to air safety. Make sure to take action to detect, prevent, and report false, deceptive, or phantom controller communications to an aircraft or controller. When false or deceptive communications occur, make sure to correct the false information, broadcast an alert to aircraft operating on all frequencies within the area where deceptive or phantom transmissions have been received, collect pertinent information regarding the incident, notify the operations supervisor of the false transmissions, and report all relevant information pertaining to the incident. Use the following format for radio communications with an aircraft. For sector or position on initial radio contact, identify the aircraft, identify the ATC unit, give a message, if any, and the word over if required. For subsequent radio transmissions from the same sector or position, you must use the same format except the identification of the ATC unit may be omitted. For terminal, you may omit aircraft identification after initial contact when conducting the final portion of a radar approach. Use the following format for interphone, intra, and inter-facility communications. Both the caller and receiver shall identify their facility and or position in a manner that ensures they will not be confused with another position. For example, the caller would say Albuquerque Center 63 Amarillo departure, and the receiver would say Albuquerque Center. Between two facilities which utilize numeric position identification, the caller must identify both facility and position. For example, Albuquerque 63, Fort Worth 82. The caller can also state the type of coordination to be accomplished when advantageous, for example, a handoff. Or, the caller states the message, the receiver states the response to the caller's message, followed by the receiver's operating initials, and the caller states his or her operating initials. For example, the caller would say Denver High R25, the receiver would say Denver High. The caller would then respond request direct Denver for Northwest 328. The receiver would respond Northwest 328 direct Denver approved HF. And the caller would say GM, with HF and GM being their initials. Make sure to terminate interphone messages with your operating initials, and always emphasize appropriate digits, letters, or similar sounding words to aid in distinguishing between similar sounding aircraft identifications. Additionally, notify each pilot concerned when communicating with aircraft having similar sounding identifications. Use the words emergency or control for interrupting lower priority messages when you have an emergency or control message to transmit.
Authorized relays 2-4-7. Relay operational information to aircraft or aircraft operators as necessary. Do not agree to handle such messages on a regular basis. Give the source of any such message you relay. Relay official FAA messages as required. Relay operational information to military aircraft operating on or planning to operate on IRS. Radio message format. 2-4-8. For radio communications with an aircraft, use the format: from the sector or position on initial radio contact with the aircraft, state identification of aircraft, identification of ATC unit, message, if any, and subsequent radio transmissions from the same sector or position must use the same format, except the identification of the ATC unit may be omitted. Abbreviated transmissions. 2-4-9. Transmissions may be abbreviated in the following ways. Use identification prefix in the last 3 digits or letters of the aircraft identification after communications have been established. Omit the facility identification after communication has been established. Transmit the message immediately after the call-up when the message is short and receipt is generally assured. Omit the word over if the message obviously requires a reply. Priority interpretation. 2-4-11. Use the words emergency or control for interrupting lower priority messages when you have an emergency or control message to transmit.
Facility identification. Airport traffic control towers. State the name of the facility followed by the word tower. Where military and civil airports are located in the same general area and have similar names, state the name of the military service followed by the name of the military facility and the word tower. Examples: Columbus Tower, Barksdale Tower, when they're located in the same place. Navy, Jacksonville Tower. Air route traffic control centers. State the name of the facility followed by the word center. Approach control facilities including RAPCONs, RAPCFs, and RAACs. State the name of the facility followed by the word approach. Where military and civil facilities are located in the same area and have similar names, state the name of the military service followed by the name of the facility and the word approach. Examples: Boston Approach, LaGuardia Clearance Delivery, and O'Hare Ground. When calling or replying to a facility on an interphone line which connects only two non-VSCS equipped facilities, you may omit the facility name. Example: Bradford High handoff.
Aircraft Identification, Chapter 2, Section 4, Paragraph 20. We use full identification in reply to aircraft with similar sounding identifications. The same identification can be used for other aircrafts in reply that the pilot used in his or her initial call-up. For civil, we state the prefix November when established initial communications with U.S. registered aircraft, followed by the ICAO phonetics, which are the numbers/letters of the aircraft registration. An example may be November 728 Whiskey or November 728. Air carrier and other civil aircraft having FAA authorized call signs, we state their call sign followed by the flight number in group form. Group form is a pronunciation of the series of numbers as a whole number or pairs of numbers. We do not pronounce each separate digit. However, in some instances, we negate by 4-digit identifiers or the placement of zeros in the identifier. Examples may be American 52, United 101, Delta 010. For air taxis and commercial operations not having FAA authorized call signs, we state the prefix Tango on initial contact. An example may be Tango November 1291. For taxi ambulance, state prefix Medevac if used by pilot followed by the call sign and flight number in group form. An example is Medevac American 51. Civilian air ambulance can be stated Medevac 2646. Military can be stated Navy 34516. When the president is aboard a military aircraft, we may say Air Force One, Military One, or Marine One. Executive One Foxtrot is stated when a member of the president's family is aboard. Air Force 2, Army 2, and Marine 2 are applied to aircrafts with the vice president aboard a military aircraft. Civil aircraft is stated Executive 2.
What is an aircraft? An aircraft is any machine supported for flight in the air by buoyancy or by the dynamic action of air on its surfaces, especially airplanes, gliders, helicopters, and balloons. There are plenty of different aircrafts. The first one I will be discussing is known as the propeller-driven plane. This is an aircraft that depends on the thrust of the propeller. In this instance, the wing produces lift by the air rushing underneath the wings, which allows for the plane to lift. The next one would be a jet engine. A jet is an aircraft that relies on the engine power. The jet engines operate by burning fuel at high pressures with compressed air. The heat produced by the fuel forces gas out of the engine, which pushes the plane forward. Another one would be the helicopter. The helicopter is an aircraft that can take off and land vertically. It can fly in any direction, even sideways and backwards. It can also hover or hang in the air above a given place. A helicopter gets its power from the rotors or blades. The rotor blades have an airfoil shape like the wings of an airplane. As the rotors turn, air flows more quickly over the tops of the blades than it does below. This creates enough lift for flight. A glider is a special kind of aircraft that has no engine. In flight, a glider has three forces acting on it. These include lift, drag, and weight. A glider has no thrust. The wing shape is an airfoil. This gives the wings lift. As warm air rises, the glider rides the updrafts and stays in the air for hours. A less common one would be the gyrocopter, which is an aircraft that looks like a smaller helicopter. Unlike the helicopter, the gyrocopter uses the thrust of the rear rotor to accelerate. As the aircraft moves forward, air rushes through the underside of the blades and causes them to spin and create lift. Lastly, a hot air balloon. A hot air balloon is an aircraft with no engine or wings. A gas burner is used to heat air to about 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Since hot air is lighter and less dense than the cool air around the balloon, the heated air causes the entire balloon to rise. When the air inside the balloon cools down, or when the hot air is let out, the balloon will descend.
On September 11, 2001, Ronnie came from Starbucks grabbing herself a white mocha cappuccino. Sipping and walking along the subway cavern with an Al Capone cigar in hand, she put out the roach. Now heading into the security division of John F. Kennedy Airport, the airport she worked in, flights were coming in for the past holiday of Labor Day. Folks were coming and leaving home to go back to their busy but lazy work days. Checking into her port at 0700, on time at 0632, she becomes updated regarding traffic. Ronnie is part of air traffic controllers at John F. Kennedy Airport, a Class B airspace surrounding. Waiting to switch positions with Heather, who was on current controls, Ronnie listens to the frequency between Heather and a Boeing aircraft that ID'd holding cargo coming in northeastern bound and another commercial airplane holding 150 passengers aboard. The line of FAA regulations has always stuck with her forever. She remembers while at work. A pilot in command may deviate from any rule to maintain safety.
Good morning, this is Ronnie. Your current control is on the ground. JFK Center, United 1, this is Safe Air 1, copy. She speaks and begins to go in robotic mode as the aircrafts are coming in. Noticing no emergency messages, she clears 4 planes to begin route to runways through A34 and Alpha 16. With an airplane in holding, circling outside LaGuardia airspace, and 2 airplanes coming down prepared to land, Ronnie takes a deep breath, preparing herself for a very long day. Another commercial aircraft is coming down to 200 AGL in Safe Air airspace. Arriving southwestern bound from Chicago, contacts Control Tower.
JFK Center 34, O'Hare arrival.
Ronnie responds to the incoming aircraft. JFK Center.
Request direct to land.
Request direct to arrive Southwest 177 Roco.
Southwest 177 Roco direct JFK approved MD.
RL.
4 hours into the shift, the frequencies begin to become static and many frequencies on top of each other.
The Twin Towers have been hit with an aircraft holding passengers. They say it might be a terrorist attack. All airspaces across the country have been requested to immediately terminate all flight operations and all aircrafts must be on the ground. Doesn't matter where they are, they just need to be out of the air, says Frankie, busting through the door out of breath.
Suddenly, looking at the radar screen, Ronnie notices a Boeing 747 out of place. Traffic, U.S. Airways 8156, I advise you to turn right and climb immediately. Ronnie repeated herself. Traffic, 11 o'clock, 20 miles, northbound, altitude unknown, converging, Boeing 747 17000. Maybe they're too far off the radar. Ronnie talks under her breath and decides to make a handoff. Norfolk, Rugby requests VFR traffic advisories over.
JFK Center requests VFR traffic advisories.
Becoming frazzled at the event, Ronnie zones out the other radio lines and focuses on her 2 aircraft in the holding airspace and contacts the pilots to land immediately and safely on Alpha 21 runways and Alpha 18. Notifying the pilots of the event after arrival at the grounds, the passengers sit in their airplanes pamping on about their family members in the city and listening to the news radio through the earphones on a 9/11 attack. JFK Center, safe air is clear of all aircraft outgoing and holding. Ronnie responds to the immediate action of the FAA.
JFK Center, you are to stand by for further instructions. Copy.
CL. Taking off the headgear and rubbing her forehead, Ronnie ponders on the thought of the attack and listens to the radio news about another aircraft hitting the Pentagon. Ronnie glances at the radar screen as the dots across the United States become fewer and fewer. Never seen such a clean mess. A pilot in command may deviate from any rule to maintain safety.